Charlie Kirk walked onto the Utah Valley University stage that afternoon, unaware that within hours his name would dominate headlines across the nation. What began as an ordinary campus rally erupted into one of the most shocking and mysterious attacks in recent history, a carefully planned strike that left investigators chasing shadows and a country demanding answers. On a warm spring afternoon, Utah Valley University's campus was alive with energy. Students wandered between classes, professors lectured in sunlit halls, and a sense of normalcy hung over the sprawling grounds. But in the center of it all, a crowd had gathered unlike any the campus had seen in recent memory. Bright banners waved in the breeze, cameras flashed, and people jostled for position near a large stage erected in the middle of the open quad. The occasion was a rally, one that promised to be both energetic and provocative, featuring Charlie Kirk, a nationally recognized figure with a following that extended far beyond the university walls. Excitement buzzed through the crowd. Some attendees had traveled from neighboring cities, drawn by the chance to witness a figure who had become synonymous with political activism and controversy. Others were students, curious or supportive, eager to participate in an event that offered a break from ordinary campus life. The energy was palpable, a mixture of anticipation, camaraderie, and tension. Vendors sold drinks and snacks nearby, while local news crews set up cameras to capture every moment. It was a scene that could have belonged to a festival or a political convention full of color, movement, and noise, but underneath the surface, an unspoken tension threaded through the crowd. Security measures were visible but subtle. Metal detectors, uniformed personnel, and surveillance cameras lined the perimeter, providing reassurance to some and unease to others. There was a feeling that this was no ordinary gathering. For weeks, rumors had circulated online about possible protests, disagreements, or attempts to disrupt the rally. Still, the majority of attendees came with optimism, believing the day would pass without incident, ready to listen, take photos, and be part of a historic moment on their campus. As the scheduled start time approached, the crowd swelled. People craned their necks for a better view of the stage, where technicians hurriedly checked microphones and audio equipment. The smell of fresh grass and sun-warmed pavement mingled with the faint scent of food trucks parked nearby. Children, brought by parents who hoped to expose them to civic engagement, clutched small banners. College students in jeans and hoodies chatted, their voices mixing with the hum of drones flying above to capture footage for local media and social feeds. Then, as if on cue, Charlie Kirk appeared. The crowd erupted in applause, whistles, and chants. Cameras clicked relentlessly, capturing every movement, every wave, and every expression. Kirk moved confidently across the stage, acknowledging the crowd with practiced gestures, shaking hands with those closest to the front barriers. From the audience's perspective, it was electrifying, a moment that felt historic. Social media feeds lit up with live updates, videos, and pictures, spreading the excitement far beyond the campus borders. But beneath the spectacle, a shadow of unease lingered. Security teams exchanged brief, urgent whispers. Some attendees noticed people moving unusually through the crowd, pausing just long enough to catch attention before blending back in. The day that had begun with promise and exhilaration carried the first invisible threads of tension, threads that no one yet fully understood. The atmosphere was a mixture of celebration and quiet anticipation, a fragile balance between hope and foreboding that would soon be shattered in ways nobody could have predicted. The first sharp crack was so unexpected that many in the crowd mistook it for a burst balloon or a microphone malfunction. It came again, louder and unmistakable this time, slicing through the cheers and applause like a blade. For a fraction of a second, the crowd froze, eyes darting in confusion, faces registering disbelief. Then came the screams. Panic erupted in a wave as people shoved, stumbled, and scattered in every direction. Chairs overturned, banners crumpled, and phones clattered to the ground as the joyful noise of the rally transformed into chaos. On stage, staff members rushed toward Charlie Kirk, their movements frantic and uncoordinated. Security officers sprang into action, forming a shield and signaling for an immediate evacuation. The sound of additional shots echoed against the campus buildings, creating a disorienting reverberation that made it impossible to tell where the danger was coming from. Some attendees dropped to the ground, covering their heads. Others surged toward the exits, their screams blending into a single roar of fear. The warm afternoon air now carried the sharp scent of gunpowder, a metallic tang that clung to the back of the throat. Witnesses later described the scene as a blur of motion and noise. Parents grabbed their children and sprinted, students tripped over fallen signs, and reporters abandoned their cameras in a desperate attempt to find cover. The carefully planned security perimeter dissolved in seconds as the crowd's frantic movements created gaps and confusion. Officers shouted commands, but the sheer volume of panic drowned out their voices. Every sudden movement, every unfamiliar face, became a potential threat in the eyes of those fleeing. Amid the chaos, emergency sirens began to wail in the distance, growing louder as campus police and local law enforcement rushed toward the scene. Medical teams fought to push through the crowd, their path slowed by the surge of terrified people pouring out of the quad. Radios crackled with urgent updates, but the information was fragmented and contradictory. Some reported a single shooter, others insisted there were multiple attackers. No one could say for certain where the gunfire had originated or whether the assailant remained in the area. Inside the campus command center, security footage began streaming in from dozens of cameras, but the images were chaotic and often obscured by the running crowd. A figure in dark clothing appeared briefly on one screen, then disappeared into the shifting mass of people. Officers relayed descriptions over the radio: height, clothing, direction of travel, but the details changed with each new report. The attacker, whoever they were, seemed to have vanished as quickly as they appeared. By the time paramedics reached the stage, the once celebratory rally site was littered with overturned chairs, abandoned personal belongings, and streaks of blood on the concrete. The sounds of chaos slowly gave way to the heavy thrum of helicopters circling overhead and the distant hum of police loudspeakers ordering students to shelter in place. What had begun as a day of excitement now stood as a crime scene, the reality of violence settling over the campus like a dark, inescapable shadow. Investigators wasted no time turning the campus into a tightly controlled crime scene. Yellow tape stretched across the once lively quad, sealing off every pathway and entrance while officers moved methodically through the debris. Evidence markers dotted the ground like a constellation, each one highlighting fragments of a day that had spiraled into horror bullet casings glinting in the sun, discarded shoes, shattered phones, and torn banners bearing the rally's slogans. Forensics teams in white suits knelt over each piece of potential evidence, carefully photographing and cataloging before collecting it in sealed bags. Every sound was hushed except for the occasional murmur of radios and the steady click of camera shutters. Detectives began their work by reviewing hours of security footage from every corner of the campus. Screens in the makeshift command center flickered with images of students running, officers shouting, and flashes of dark shapes weaving through the chaos. Somewhere in those recordings, they believed, lay the key to identifying the attacker. At first, the footage revealed little beyond the panic itself. Faces blurred by motion, figures obscured by smoke and dust, and sudden power surges in the surveillance system all complicated the search. Accounts conflicted, timelines overlapped, and emotions ran high, making it difficult to separate fear-fueled speculation from verifiable fact. Detectives patiently pieced together each testimony, mapping movements across the quad in hopes of constructing a timeline that could narrow the field of suspects. Digital forensics teams scoured social media platforms for any sign of premeditation. They tracked hashtags, live streams, and geotagged photos posted before, during, and after the rally. Patterns began to emerge in the noise: cryptic comments on obscure forums, anonymous messages hinting at disruption, and a trail of encrypted chats suggesting that the attack had been carefully orchestrated long before the rally began. Each discovery raised unsettling questions about how such planning could unfold unnoticed and whether more threats might be imminent. Physical evidence told its own story. Ballistic analysis revealed that the weapon used was highly specialized, capable of precision firing from a significant distance. Investigators traced the bullets to a rare model of firearm, one difficult to obtain legally. This finding suggested a level of planning that went beyond impulse or chance. Fingerprint tests on shell casings and discarded items returned partial matches, but no immediate hits in any database. Whoever carried out the attack had either never been caught before or had taken extraordinary measures to remain anonymous. As night fell, floodlights illuminated the silent quad while officers maintained their posts. Despite the intensive search, no suspect had been captured and no definitive motive had surfaced. The investigation had uncovered threads of planning and sophistication, but the full picture remained maddeningly incomplete, leaving the campus and the nation to wonder who had orchestrated such a calculated act and why they had chosen that day, that place, and that moment to strike. Days stretched into a tense week as investigators worked around the clock, believing they were on the verge of a breakthrough. A sudden lead came when analysts isolated a grainy clip from a rooftop camera on a nearby science building. The footage revealed a shadowy figure carrying a long, narrow case moments before the first shot rang out. Though the person's face remained obscured, their deliberate movements and careful positioning hinted at a calculated escape route. The discovery electrified the investigation, but it also deepened the mystery. The individual appeared to vanish into an area of the campus where multiple security cameras simultaneously experienced unexplained outages. Technicians traced the camera failures to a temporary power disruption in the university's network, suggesting someone had exploited the system with precision timing. This revelation shifted the theory from a lone attacker to a coordinated operation. Experts in cybersecurity were brought in to examine logs and server data. They uncovered traces of sophisticated hacking tools capable of disabling surveillance feeds for critical minutes without leaving obvious fingerprints. The evidence pointed toward a team rather than an isolated gunman, raising fears that the attack had been planned by a group with access to advanced technology and insider knowledge of the campus layout. Further investigation into phone records and travel logs revealed another startling detail. In the days before the rally, several unidentified individuals booked hotel rooms under aliases within walking distance of the university. Receipts showed staggered check-in times and cash payments designed to avoid detection. Witnesses later recalled seeing strangers entering and leaving at odd hours, carrying equipment cases similar to the ones seen in the rooftop footage. These findings suggested that the primary shooter may have received logistical support, possibly including transportation, weapons handling, or surveillance. The idea of accomplices set off a new wave of urgency. Federal agencies joined the investigation, pooling resources to track encrypted communications and suspicious financial transactions. Analysts uncovered a pattern of anonymous cryptocurrency transfers linked to accounts associated with extremist message boards. The timing of these transfers, each coinciding with key developments in the rally's planning, hinted at funding for an organized plot rather than a spontaneous act of violence. Investigators began to suspect that the attack might have been commissioned or encouraged by a hidden network of collaborators who remained out of reach. As leads multiplied, the case grew more complex. Agents who thought they were hunting a single gunman now faced the possibility of dismantling a web of conspirators. Yet, despite the influx of new evidence, the identities of those responsible remained elusive. Facial recognition algorithms failed to match the masked figure from the rooftop footage. Phone numbers used to coordinate hotel bookings disappeared after a single call. Digital breadcrumbs seemed to end just as quickly as they began. Meanwhile, the campus community wrestled with fear and unease. Rumors of an organized group fueled anxiety among students and faculty, who wondered whether those involved might still be nearby. Security was tightened, classes moved online, and helicopters continued to circle overhead, a visible reminder of the invisible forces at work. Each revelation, every cryptic transaction, every unexplained outage pushed the story further from a straightforward tragedy and closer to something larger, darker, and far more unsettling than anyone had imagined when the first shot echoed across the quad. The nation awoke to a morning heavy with unanswered questions as the investigation into the Utah Valley University tragedy deepened. In the days following the attack, federal agents, local detectives, and forensic experts worked in unison, piecing together fragments of evidence that now painted a chilling portrait of deliberate planning. The campus remained under tight security, its once vibrant quad transformed into a labyrinth of barricades, floodlights, and humming surveillance equipment. Students who once lounged on the grass now walked quickly with lowered eyes, their conversations reduced to hushed exchanges about rumors and theories. Forensic teams continued to analyze shell casings, fibers, and the faint chemical traces left behind by the weapon. Ballistic reports confirmed that the shooter had used a precision rifle capable of striking from a distance far greater than initially believed. This revelation forced investigators to expand the search beyond campus grounds, exploring vantage points on nearby rooftops and wooded hillsides. Drone footage uncovered subtle disturbances in the soil behind a maintenance building, suggesting that equipment or additional weapons may have been stashed there in advance. Every discovery widened the scope of the crime and raised more questions about how such a plan could have been executed without detection. Digital analysts traced a series of encrypted online messages that hinted at the existence of hidden collaborators. Anonymous accounts exchanged cryptic phrases and coordinates in the weeks before the rally, their conversations stopping abruptly hours after the attack. A sudden surge of cryptocurrency transfers to offshore wallets added another layer of intrigue, suggesting financial backing from unknown sources. Each lead sparked new theories. Was the event orchestrated by a network of extremists? Was someone inside the university providing logistical support? Or was it the work of a small but highly skilled team operating independently of any larger movement? Even as investigators released composite sketches of potential accomplices, the primary suspect remained unidentified. Witness statements were conflicting and often unreliable, blurred by the terror of the moment. Some described a tall figure in a dark jacket slipping through service corridors moments after the first shot. Others insisted they saw a vehicle speeding away from a restricted parking area, though no license plate matched the descriptions provided. Surveillance footage captured shadows and shapes but no clear faces, as if the perpetrators had anticipated every camera angle. Across the country, debates raged about campus security, political polarization, and the growing sophistication of targeted violence. News networks replayed the chaotic footage on a loop, while social media filled with speculation that only deepened the mystery. Memorials for Charlie Kirk sprang up in cities far from Utah, candles flickering beside handwritten notes calling for justice and unity. Despite the grief, a shared determination emerged among investigators and citizens alike to uncover the hidden architects of the attack and prevent the next tragedy before it could unfold. The case remained open as the first autumn leaves began to fall, the unanswered questions hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Somewhere, investigators believed the conspirators were watching silent, calculating, and perhaps already planning their next move.